Today we're going to talk about the future of liquid staking derivatives, and I'm very, very happy to see that we have three great guests with us today. We have Darren Langley, who's the general manager from Rocket Pool, Sam Kazemian, the founder of Frax Finance, as well as Anoothi, who's the head of Ethereum business at Stader Labs. Welcome, three of you guys. How are you guys doing?
Hi, Zhong. Thank you so much for hosting us. Absolutely thrilled to be talking to the panel and just engaging with the audience. So
Yeah,
very, very excited for today and doing very well. I'm dialing in from Dubai.
nice. Darren, you okay? Your camera is not coming up. Oh, can you hear us? And Sam, can you hear us? Hmm. Hang on, we may have a bit of a technical issue here. Sam and Darren, I think you guys may be on mute, or maybe you guys need to unmute.
Can you guys hear me?
Hi, yes. Yep.
Oh, excellent.
Hey,
Cool.
hey, Sam. Yeah.
Hey, sorry about that. Yeah. So, hey guys, name's Sam, founder of Frax. Good to be here with you guys, and super excited to talk about Frax Ether. Frax is LSD slash stablecoin. We design it a little bit differently, and really appreciate the opportunity. So, good morning from the west coast of the United States. Super early here, but excited to talk.
Thanks for joining us. And I think we're just hang on, we're just waiting for Darren. I think he's having a bit of issue, but I think should be able to come in because he's already in the call. Yeah. I I think what we're gonna let Darren sort of rejoin, but I think why don't we get started first, and I think we can come back to Darren later because everyone's sort of waiting. So I think just wanted to kick this off straight away. I think thank you guys again for joining us. I think with liquid staking derivatives, they really have been the hot thing. I think since the Shapella upgrade, even before, but obviously even after the Shapella upgrade in August last year, there's been a lot of excitement around liquid staking derivatives. There were obviously a lot of rumors circulating. Everyone was trying to predict how the market was going to turn out. Once withdrawals sort of got turned on, and people were saying, like, maybe the staking landscape was going to change. Certainly we thought we would see a bit more movement in how staking sort of the LSD providers, the stakers would sort of move around between different providers. Given that not much have really changed, to be honest. I was curious to see from you guys, is this sort of within your expectations? Hi, Darren, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, great. Thanks,
Sorry
thanks,
about that.
thanks for joining us. No worries. I think
Okay.
we just got started, and I guess my question was around Shapella. All the expectations before that, and sort of all the rumors and all the guessing games, right? That could the landscape sort of be changing? But I think for now at least seems to be like we've sort of maintained sort of status quo, except I think Kraken sort of exiting completely, or almost completely, because of regulatory issues. I was just wondering whether these are within everyone's expectations, or you thought that there would be more things that would be changing. Maybe start with Sam, and we can sort of go around the table. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I've actually said the kind of opposite as a lot of people might have been thinking, because one of the prevailing things you hear online and stuff before Shapella is like, oh, the ETH is gonna dump, everyone's gonna like withdraw, and like it's super bearish and things like that. I've always said, actually, it's a de-risking event. ETH becomes interest bearing, essentially, right? When you can essentially earn some kind of close to risk-free rate, whatever that rate may be, which is the POS rate, ETH essentially becomes a interest-bearing asset. You don't want to leave that interest rate, that APR on the table, and so there will be the exact opposite of what everyone was saying, which is a lot of withdrawing and dumping of ETH. There will be actually a massive amount of staking going on and very, very little withdrawing. And as you said, the only real significant substantive net withdrawals we see is not economic reasons, but legal or regulatory or outside reasons. And so we're really happy to see the vast amount of TVL come in, both everywhere in LSDs, right, and Rocket Pool, in Stader and Frax ETH, and all of these places. So and also you could see this by the withdrawal queue being basically like minutes long, and the entry queue being many weeks. And my own position on this is that the entry queue for many months will be months long, because Ethereum is basically going to be going up to somewhere between 50 to 60% of all total ETH in circulation as staked. So it'll be exciting, but it's going to be a really interesting next 6 to 12 months, in my opinion.
Anoothi, what about yourself from the Stader perspective?
I agree with a lot of stuff that Sam said, and I would just like to build on what he said. So even when we were waiting for the Shapella to happen, I tweeted about what my outlook would be on this. And I really feel that the flexibility that Shapella provided in terms of being able to withdraw your staked funds would in fact encourage a lot more inflow into staking. Because as Sam was mentioning, this was a major de-risking event, especially for institutions, right? And if you look at the stats on ETH, prior to Shapella and even lately, it has been around 14.5 to 15% of ETH in circulation that is actually staked. And if you benchmark it to the other POS blockchains, that looks in the range of say 30 to 50%. And even if you go with the conservative view of 30% over the next 12 to 18 months, it still means that approximately $30 billion worth of ETH will get staked. And so I feel like the staking market overall is going to expand. And I think, with the numbers that we are looking at, especially Sam pointed out, the waiting queue. So basically, approximately, if you look at the waiting queue, it's like 71K validators are in queue, and more than $4 billion of ETH will get staked over the next 39 to 40 days. This queue is only expected to expand and increase, whereas the exit queue currently has only 0 validators. So that number speaks for itself. And other than that, I also feel like Shapella is really has unlocked choice for the users. So, choice between staking versus not staking, liquid versus plain staking, and even amongst the various liquid staking players, so that they can actually, pump in more of their funds and diversify it across multiple solutions. So I think it's going to be a step forward for all of us to be in this game together. And I really believe that the market is going to expand, and there will be room for growth for like multiple partners in this journey.
Yeah, and Darren, what do you think? I mean, you guys were pretty, rolled out a whole bunch of upgrades, I think, just right after Shapella.
Yeah. So it was quite good timing to roll out our scaling solution to Rocket Pool at the time when we really needed it. The other guys have kind of covered it all, like de-risking, inflows, all of that sort of stuff. But if you really think about it, pre-withdrawals, the only people really staking were the early adopters. The crazy people, essentially, that would stake their ETH without any idea about when they're going to get it back. So they're the early adopters. But going forward, it's the early majority and the majority. Then that's quite an interesting thing to think about. That the majority of the people that will coming into staking will come in the next kind of 12 to 18 months. So that's pretty exciting for us as an industry, and it's going to be quite fun to watch.
And when you mentioned early adopters, right, that start staking before Shapella. Obviously, post Shapella, we have seen also like projects launch a whole bunch of LSDs. Like there's almost like a new LSD launch every other day since Shapella. Like, do you think like is the catalyst really like, everyone can withdraw now, so let's all build this new hot thing and all come to market. Like, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so I think in the same sense that delivering Shapella de-risked it for kind of stakers and users of liquid staking products, it also de-risked it for building a business in the staking industry. So now it's a lot less risky to build a business or a protocol within kind of the staking industry. Everything's out there now in terms of everyone knows how it works. So I think that's definitely a thing.
And Anoothi, I think you mentioned institutionals just now. So I was wondering, I think, we maybe the early guys were all, individuals and like Darren said, the real ETH maxis, like, and there were some LSDs now that specifically targeted institutionals. Like, what's your perspective on these, and will institutions come to this space?
Yes, I think, as I mentioned, I feel like, institutionals are an extremely key stakeholder in the user base. And that was a category that was extremely apprehensive of entering a solution like this, which is understandable because, you've given your funds and you don't know when you can get it back. So, even when I look at it from a point of view of, you say, a whale or a user who wants to just put in even a significant chunk of their wealth, I feel like even in the early adopters, I feel like there is scope to expand in that because people were just putting this as an experiment. Now that they have seen this scale up and transition successfully, and the Shapella has happened, and it's evident from the ETH prices being largely stable, I feel like even the early adopters are going to put in more funds because it helps win over faith. And then obviously additional whales and institutions for sure will come in. And I think what it does when big players also come in is that it gives a lot of legitimacy and credibility even to the smaller users in the market, that when institutions are willing to trust protocols with larger amounts of funds, it really is a big confidence boost, and it creates a positive virtuous cycle in terms of reinforcing the value that the entire network and protocol is creating and attracting more funds. So I definitely see this positive loop kicking in, and we are here to stay and see what happens.
And Sam, do you have anything to add to that? I think we're seeing seems to be different flavors of LSD offerings come to the market to cater for different types of people.
Yeah, definitely. So as a lot of people might know, if they're familiar with Frax is a stablecoin issuance protocol. So before Frax Ether, our flagship product was Frax, the dollar-pegged stablecoin. And the way that we actually designed Frax Ether is as if it's an ETH-pegged stablecoin, which is a little bit different and entirely a different take on how to actually create the kind of primitive that people call an LSD. And because of that, we've actually seen pretty incredible growth, both across large holders, if you could call them either institutional holders or whales or whatever you want to label them. Frax Ether has two tokens. One is just the FRX ETH token, which is a stable coin. It's always stabilized to be 1 ETH in every situation. There's a deep curve pool, there's liquidity, and it's now after Shapella, it's infinitely deep. You can always have the validators withdraw and have the token be redeemable, essentially, right? And then there's staked Frax Ether, which you stake and earn all of the POS rewards. And so this actually allows you to have a system where anywhere the Frax Ether token is integrated just as a stablecoin, whether in AMMs, bridged to other chains and things like that, actually builds a monetary premium. And so you have a situation where the stablecoin is integrated in different places for utility, and then a subset of the stablecoin is staked and earning all of the proof of stake rewards from the validators. And so that actually allows you to have a pretty high earning, LSD, quote, quote, is what most people call it. We call it a ETH stablecoin. And so far, it's gone really well. We take more of a economics approach to designing an LSD rather than kind of a yield product. And it's really cool to see all the different design perspectives, right? Like Lido has a rebasing system. I think Rocket Pool has a growing, Reth is a token that grows in price. I believe Stader as well. Our State Frax Ether also grows in virtual price and is redeemable for a larger and larger amount of Frax Ether, the underlying stablecoin. So I think the design is quite important, and it's really cool to see a diverse amount of designs in the LSD space.
Yeah, I think design and what these LSDs actually offer to their users are sort of very important. And a lot of people just focus on fees and the yield that they can get. I was wondering, I think turn this question to Anoothi and Darren, like how do you think about how LSDs are going to compete between each other? I know it's a growing community and everyone is focused on growing the pie, but at the same time, you're gonna compete, right? So, how do you see yourselves differentiating? How do you see LSDs differentiate between themselves? And maybe start with Anoothi first. Yeah.
Sure, Zhong. So yeah, like I was saying that we are all definitely focused on being in this journey together, and I firmly believe that it is not and it should not be a winner take all market. It's a really big market, and we're all trying to grow the pie here. But would love to talk about what we are trying to envision with ETHX at Stader and share some information around that. So on ETH with ETHX, we are really aiming to create a decentralized solution without sacrificing scalability. And the way we are trying to do this is through a multi-pool architecture that brings the best access and experience to the node operators and the users. So on the node operator end, we are introducing the lowest capital requirement of just 4 ETH for node operations to spin up a node on Ethereum with ETHX. And there is an additional bonding requirement of 0.4 ETH worth of SD, which is Stader's native governance token. And that is also, the lowest governance token exposure required on ETH so far. And the intent really is to, bring this opportunity to aspiring node operators who yet do not have enough capital to potentially be on, say, solutions like solo staking, and still access this and provide them one-on-one guidance on this journey by just onboarding them and helping them spin up a node. We are further doing multiple workshops and educational content to onboard aspiring NOs. Some of the details on the workshops will be released closer to launch. And we are partnering with hardware and cloud solutions like Avado and Allnodes to ensure better accessibility of these solutions to the node operators who are interested in this opportunity. And while this is the primary solution, we want to complement the whole SD bonding piece and reward node operators for it. And so we are earmarking 1 million SD in rewards on the bonded SD for the NOs who are on this journey with us as we scale up and finally launch on ETH and grow. And in terms of access for the users, we are really trying to make the staking experience convenient. And so the way the multi-pool architecture ensures this is that users don't have to wait for capacity to build up on the permissionless side for them to start accruing staking returns. because the permissionless side is definitely constrained by new node operators coming in, and these node operators need to have the requisite capital. And in the interim, what happens is that users need to end up waiting in queue. And so what we are going to do is we are going to complement this permissionless node operator set with a set of 6 permission node operators with an initial 70-30 split, and over time grow the 70% of permissionless and shrink the permissioned. But in this transition, the user will not suffer, and their ETH will always be available to accrue rewards and be ready to get staked. And then we are definitely simplifying and securing the staking experience. We revamped our entire UI to just make it more simple and intuitive. And we are also enabling slashing protection through the entire ETH and SD bonding. And needless to say, we will make sure that the economic incentives to line up through the DeFi rewards and the staking rewards. We have earmarked $1 million in DeFi rewards for the launch. So that is broadly how we are envisioning the journey of accessibility for NOs and users.
Thanks for that. And Darren, what about on the rocket pool end?
Yeah, so it's quite funny because everyone's kind of like trading off scaling and performance and decentralization. It's very, very hard. If you go too far one way, you don't get a good product. If you go too far the other way, you undermine Ethereum, and that doesn't mean you're sustainable in the long term. So really building a staking protocol is extremely hard. It's particularly hard to build one that's decentralized and permissionless. So we're all kind of like trying different approaches. Back when I first started at Rocket Pool in 2018, Ethereum staking was pretty cutting edge. Today, it's definitely matured, but every project is still kind of innovating, and we're all on the same kind of lines in terms of we're making it easier, we're making it kind of more performant, more scalable, and more decentralized. Those are kind of the interesting things. Rocket Pool, we've done quite well so far in terms of our decentralization. So with over 2,700 node operators, I think we're staking about 3.5% of the ETH at the moment, all staked ETH at the moment. So we've got a long way to go in terms of balancing out the beacon chain. I think that's an important kind of thing that we need to do for the health of Ethereum and its sustainability.
Yeah, and I think just to come around to that, I think with Lido being the dominant player, I guess there were a lot of conversation around concentration risks, and really it's around 2 areas, right? So one is, I think smart contract risk, right? So if something goes wrong in the concentrated pool, or in the LSD itself, what's going to happen? Can someone drain an entire LSD protocol of their assets? And 2 is around governance risk, right? So questions around censorship, questions around whether ETH can remain credibly neutral, and questions like that. So I think Darren, you've been talking about a lot of these topics for a while now. Perhaps could you help us break down some of this risk, and how the community can go around mitigating some of this, or are some of this just fudge, right? Like it's just impossible for some of these things to happen.
Yeah, so I mean we'll start off with like the smart contract stuff. Yeah. So every smart contract protocol has smart contract risk. That kind of has to be managed through threat analysis, code reviews, auditing, bug bounties, being open source and transparent. They're all the things that you need to do to make sure that your smart contract protocol is safe and secure. That's kind of like the minimum. So although they kind of have that risk, they are also extremely powerful, and that's the reason why we do these things, is because they disintermediate. There's no third party between liquid stakers and node operators. The protocol just does it. So that there's some massive benefits for that as well. In terms of like the governance, so it's definitely something that we'll be focusing on over the next kind of year. Is kind of like our kind of governance processes and that sort of thing. I think Rocket Pool has definitely got one of the most engaged communities and governance surrounding it. All of our node operators are kind of participate in the governance. We have like a massive quorum each time we do any sort of proposal. So they're definitely engaged and they're very, very vocal in terms of the way that we go about things. We've kind of said that we will self-limit, for example, in terms of if we got too big. They're very, very passionate about Ethereum and staking in general. So that's definitely something to consider. I mean, there is always that kind of governance risk, but one of the things we're doing is kind of hardening that over time as we go. In terms of fees and all that sort of stuff, that's the development of protocol. Again, that comes down to governance because protocols at the moment are upgradable. They kind of have to be upgradable at the moment. It's still too early to ossify a lot of these protocols. One of the things that we are kind of starting to do is have that discussion about what parts of the protocol we can ossify and that sort of thing. But it is very, very difficult to ossify protocols at this early stage. But in the future, that is not necessarily a thing. I mean, later on, we can start ossifying the protocols so that there's not as much kind of upgrade risk or that sort of thing. Okay,
thanks for that. Sam, you have a slightly different design, or Frax has a slightly different design. So are sort of like the how you think about risks different? Are they the same?
Yeah. So the thing that I again like to say is that ETH is basically interest bearing right now, right? And there's obviously some risk, as Darren was saying. There's always smart contract risk. There's always a certain amount of risk in these kinds of protocols. However, as more and more of the LSD projects that actually currently exist, like Stader, like Rocket Pool, like Lido, they actually build Lindy effect, which means they've stayed and grown, and there's a certain basically a brand, and there's a reliability to them. They basically become the shelling point of where you can go to get essentially the closest thing to a low risk, steady yield for your ETH. If you don't get it, you're essentially leaving money on the table, right? So the way that we've tried to build Frax Ether is to essentially make it easy for anyone to swap in and out of Frax Ether and stake it for the POS APR. We use Curve, which is as blue chip as AMMs can get. Curve and Uniswap are basically the foundational AMMs of DeFi. The protocol integrates directly with Curve and has deep liquidity on Curve. I think it's actually the deepest Curve pool for a LSD, right next to Steth. I actually think it's slightly deeper than Steth in terms of how much Frax ETH you can swap into the pool and get it exactly out at the one-to-one peg. So we take a very kind of stablecoin-like, bank-like design in terms of how to keep our issued ETH stablecoin, our liability, our LSD, people like to call it an LSD, right at the peg, at the most liquid possible on DeFi protocols and things like that. And one of the things I also want to say, when you guys were talking about competition, and we try not to actually think of any way to expand Frax ETH that is zero sum in terms of the LSD ecosystem. We think that, like I was saying at the beginning, the amount of ETH that's going to be staked in the next 12 months is going to increase manyfold. And so we want to see a world in which Frax Ether grows and every other major LSD project grows together, rather than try to go for a situation where Frax Ether grows much more than anyone else at the at other people's or other projects is degrowth or lowering of market share. And so, for example, we have a lot of DeFi yield opportunities where there's curve pools paired with other major LSDs. Like, for example, Rocket Pool's Wreath and Frax Ether have a curve pool that's deployed. It's permissionless, and we just incentivize other LSDs to pair with Frax Ether and actually get FXS token rewards, CRV tokens. We've gotten a curve pool gauge for these pools. There's many of them. There's Anchor ETH, there's Steth. They're all paired with Frax ETH. I'd also love to get Stader, the LSD that you guys issue, to join a Frax Ether curve pool. And we co-incentivize those, or even entirely incentivize them ourselves. Like, for example, I don't think the Rocket Pool one gets Ripple rewards, but we incentivize it anyway, and so does Curve with their gauges. And we're happy to do that because we want to actually grow the entire LSD ecosystem rather than just grow Frax Ether's market share at the expense of any other project. And so a lot of our actions, a lot of our programs and extra yield opportunities that we come up with are actually designed so that all LSD projects grow, get more liquidity, benefit from each other, rather than trying to think of how can Frax ETH, for example, take some of Lido's or some of Rocket Pool share. So we always like to think of things in a positive financial sense in terms of positive sum and total value creation. So yeah.
Anoothi, anything to add? I think from security and from risk perspective.
Yeah, I think Darren and Sam covered most of it, but the only thing I would like to reiterate is that smart contract risk is inherent in DeFi, and it is critical to understand that risk cannot be eliminated, but it definitely can be actively managed and controlled for. And Darren already mentioned a few ways in which protocols do it. At Stader, we follow a multi-layer security program where we ensure that we do multiple audits for every smart contract. We also have bug bounties in collaboration with Immunify, and we do on-chain monitoring of critical metrics such as the liquid staking derivative supply and price, both on the smart contract and on the LPs, through premium monitoring services like FOTA and Prometheus. So we constantly need to evolve and manage these risks and make sure that we are on top of the game there. However, I would like to highlight that liquid staking derivatives in particular have relatively lower smart contract risk because the tokens are not in custody of the protocol, but are instead deployed directly with the validators. And that definitely helps to limit the risk to a certain extent in terms of what can happen over the smart contract. So that's all I would want to say in terms of the risk, and I would urge the users to be on top of all the security measures that protocols are taking, and make sure that you go through all of it and feel confident. In terms of the governance risk, there has definitely been a strong push across protocols for progressive decentralization of their DAOs. And I think transparency and diversification are pretty much the pillars which can help build solid governance. So encourage basically participation across the board. So for example, any SD token holder can participate in Stader governance, and especially with the model on ETHX, the permissionless node operators will have SD, which they will bond, which will give them a voice on the forum, on the governance forum, and the DAO. So I think we need to make sure that the DAOs are well represented, they're diversified, and everything happens transparently, so that it is there for people to see and give feedback on. So it's a place where we have to learn from each other and probably come to a best in class collectively to make sure that we are actually building a solution that wins users' trust ultimately.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks for that. I think all important points and all interesting points for people to consider. Darren, I wanted to zoom in a bit on Rocket Pool. So one of the upgrades that you guys pushed was to to allow people to run nodes with, not the full 32 ETH, right? And it's done through a bonding system as well with RPL. I'm just wondering, what are the impacts that you've seen from making this upgrade? Do you see a change in behavior, more people coming in, staking in small amounts, for example?
Yeah. So we released Atlas, which was our release just over a month ago. Its kind of goals was scaling and kind of efficiency, and also delivering withdrawals so that people could actually get their money back. So it's been very, very good. We're growing at something like 10% a week, which is just insane. The deposits are coming in very, very fast, and the number of mini pools of validators that we're spinning up is just crazy. So that's been fantastic for us. The deposits are coming in lots of different sizes. We have like an events channel within our Discord that has this kind of nice whale breaching when it's over 4 figures. So that's been quite nice to see a few of those come in. But also there's some great integrations that we've had with MetaMask and that sort of thing, and that's bringing lots of different sizes of kind of deposits. So that's been fantastic. So Atlas in general has been a big success for us, and it kind of takes us to that next level, which we're kind of hoping to do.
Okay, that's great to hear. I think Anoothi, from Stader's perspective, I know you're the head of the Ethereum business, but obviously Stader goes across different chains, and you guys have staking products across different protocols. I'm just wondering, is Ethereum staking different? How does it compare to other chains? Are there things that Ethereum can learn from other chains, and do the users sort of behave differently?
Yes, sure. Zhong, so as you already mentioned, we are multi-chain, so currently present across 6 different POS blockchains, those being Polygon, Phantom, Hedera, BNB, Terra 2.0, and Near. And the response actually across those blockchains has been very encouraging. We are the top 2 LSDs on Polygon, BNB, Phantom, and Hedera. More than 70,000 users have staked with us so far. And while the liquid staking on Ethereum has its own nuances and complexities, which require us to definitely evolve in terms of solutions, there are a bunch of things that we are, in terms of learnings, that we will definitely migrate to Ethereum. So, for example, we currently have 40 plus DeFi integrations across the board, having partnered with some of the most popular EVM DeFi protocols, be it Balancer, Qidao, UniV3, Curve. So we are definitely going to migrate those into basically integrations, and also from the C token model, which is not rebasable. Sam referred to this over his answers. It makes it extremely easy to integrate with the existing DeFi protocols and enhance composability. And so through our existing partnerships as well as the token structure, we think that there is a significant value that we do want to create for our users by building utility for ETHX on Ethereum. And I think that there is a significant potential to grow with the momentum that we already have on the other EVM chains.
Okay, I think those are good lessons, and obviously, like leveraging on your experience across different chains, there are definitely things that can go across different ecosystems, and everyone can sort of progress together. I think, Sam, you already mentioned a few times that Frax started as sort of a stablecoin project, and now you guys are in the market now with Frax ETH. I think from a bigger picture perspective, you're also quite known for the Holy Trinity, right, for DeFi as well, and your thoughts on that. I'm just wondering now with Frax ETH, and like you said, the response has been great. How does that change how you think about building out the Frax ecosystem, and the roadmap for Frax?
Yeah, definitely. So Exactly like you're saying, Frax, it thinks of things like in terms of DeFi, in terms of stablecoins, and honestly, the main thing that we're trying to do is create this kind of DeFi Trinity stack, as you said, which is we want to issue the most important stablecoins and lending and swap facilities. So we actually have our own lending facility called Frax Lend, where people can uh, use collateral to borrow Frax, the dollar peg stablecoin, as well as use staked Frax Ether as collateral to borrow Frax, right? Essentially borrow dollars and lever up against their LSD token. And the interesting thing about that is as we continue to just build out the Frax ecosystem, staked Frax Ether in there will be able to do all of the kinds of things that might need outside integrations. People can stay in the Frax ecosystem and actually use that. If they want leverage, they can get a loan. If they want more staking yield, they can stake more of their ETH there. Also, Frax being a kind of stable coin issuance protocol, we issue native Frax stablecoins and Frax Ether stablecoins on other chains. And what that means is it doesn't have bridge risk. So, for example, if you want to hold a interest-bearing ETH, an LSD, a lot of LSD projects use a bridge partner or go through different bridges. Frax Ether is entirely issued natively. So think of kind of how Circle sometimes issues USDC natively, for example, on different blockchains. And this is an actual native liability of Circle. Like Circle will honor that stablecoin token for $1 worth of collateral. This is the same thing with all of our Frax protocol issued tokens, whether it's Frax, the dollar peg stablecoin, or Frax Ether. We issue them through the protocol smart contracts on a number of chains, which means that there's no bridge risk. You don't have to use third-party bridges to actually attain those tokens. You can be sure that they're not wrapped assets, for example. So we can benefit from a lot of the kind of stablecoin infrastructure that we've built to actually give a pretty unique offering of a quote unquote LSD, something that we've designed as a stablecoin. And lastly, just wanted to also say this kind of general thing about LSDs themselves is that I think the players that are already in the game will continue to grow entirely together, and it'll be a little bit harder for new incumbents to actually get into the game or new entrants to get into the game to compete with incumbents because of what's going on with the entry queue. So we talked originally about the entry queue being very long, and one of the things we're seeing is that when the queue is very long, you have to wait many, many weeks for your protocol's validators to get the actual system, create blocks, have attestations, and earn rewards, right? And so if, for example, let's say you're an aspiring team today and you are, maybe you've raised investment or maybe you've built this LSD protocol out and you're just about to launch and, you think, oh, nice, I'm going to overtake Lido and, Rocket Pool, Stader, Frax, and everything. You just have a really good idea or a mechanism. It's going to take you months to even get a single validator actually into the queue for your protocol to even compete with Frax, Stader, Rocket Pool, Lido, Stakewise, and all these big players. And it's going to be an interesting year because I think the more LSD protocols that cooperate with big players, and the more that the big players cooperate with each other in a positive sum manner, the better the total APR will be for everyone, rather than having to kind of fight in this entry queue, thinking about ways in which to one up other people on APR or inflating governance token emissions to make up for the entry queue APR so that you can give people a lot of APR while your validators are in the queue. So I think the coming climate will be very cooperation friendly rather than competition friendly, just because of the way that Ethereum protocol works. There's no way to really get a massive amount of validators in the actual system anymore, right? It takes weeks. So it's a very interesting dynamic to see. I'm very, very excited to see how the actual landscape plays out. So yeah.
Nice, and I think it comes nicely to our next question, which is sort of starting to look ahead, to now we have LSDs, and it's a pretty established DeFi Lego, I would say, and part of DeFi is obviously composability, and how we can stack these Legos on top of each other. I just wanted to open it up to all three of you guys. What are some of the interesting things that you're seeing that people are building with LSDs or on top of LSDs, of whether that's your own or whether you're seeing something cool that's sort of happening, because I think it's a new primitive, and DeFi has a habit of liking to stack together primitives. So maybe Darren first.
Yeah, so obviously lending and leverage is predictably quite popular, but also we're seeing kind of like AMMs. So the AMM model is and has been for quite some time just a little bit broken. So new models that kind of use liquid staking tokens kind of under the hood and in kind of novel ways to kind of improve the incentivization of those pairs and that sort of thing is quite popular. It's quite interesting. So that's going to be something to kind of watch very, very soon. Things like interest rate protocols, being able to swap variable and fixed term, and all those are coming through now. There's a lot of those coming through. Even I know it's kind of like a boring one, but wallet integrations and DeFi trackers and that sort of stuff, they're catching up in terms of that, and they're really important because they're the gateway into crypto, and if they wholeheartedly take it on as a primitive as well, with great UX, it's going to make all the difference. So I think they're the key things for me, in particular.
Yeah, Anoothi.
Yeah. So I think Darren covered some great points across the board. I feel like a bunch of interesting solutions are coming up. For example, Pendle is allowing you to split your yield and principal component of your yield bearing token, which can then be traded by the users. So that's a really interesting spin. For example, Flashtake is also working on something like giving up upfront yield of the staked asset to ensure better lock-in. Origin Protocol is working on abstracting the complexity of DeFi and giving a single yield-bearing token. So I think some really interesting solutions are coming up, and needless to say, some mega trends such as like Eigenlayer, which is going to leverage big time into the whole staking infrastructure of ETH. For better scalability and more innovative solutions, I think. So the whole landscape looks extremely promising. And other than that, I think even traditional DeFi, I think it's obviously great to have innovative solutions, but I feel like we are still such at the tip of the iceberg, even with respect to just basic DeFi. So, for example, what Darren was talking about in terms of actually say having something like staking inside wallets, so that people are aware about it and can access it. And we feel like this can be a really powerful tool. We have seen it on our other blockchains where we have native ledger integration and even native staking across wallets. So I think that can be extremely powerful, and even just across the board in terms of DEXs, lending protocols which enable leverage staking, yield optimizers, auto compounders. I feel like even the traditional ones need a big push, and there is so much more for people to know and do with liquid staking that I really feel we are at the tip of the iceberg here. But definitely more innovative stuff is also happening, so we are definitely going places, and different people will be on different parts of this growth curve, but I think there's something for everyone in it.
Yeah, Sam, I think you guys really piled on into the Curve ecosystem, right? And I was just wondering, like, do you have other things planned in terms of, like, people using Frax ETH to build out other stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So just things that I've seen that I like Anoothi said, Pendle is really good. There's Hourglass, which actually lets you commit to locking your stake for a while, and then actually tokenizing that locked stake, and so you can like sell it. It's almost like a ETH bond of sorts, and that's useful for both the user and the protocol because they know that that ETH is staked with the protocol for a while. And like I said before, we're trying to find ways in which the Frax ETH's growth benefits other LSDs as well. And we'd rather see a world in which, for example, Frax ETH has 1 million ETH staked, Rocket Pool has 1 million ETH staked, Stader has 1 million ETH staked, Lido has 1 million ETH staked, rather than like 5 million or whatever, rather than trying to gun for or build a world in which Frax ETH has 9 million ETH staked and then everyone else has barely anything. So we try to think of how do we actually increase both the overall distribution, but also grow in total number of ETH staked for everyone. So we're trying to just build out things that we think helps. And the other interesting thing is I think there's stuff that hasn't even been discovered due to the entry queue being so long. For example, something we're exploring that's very unique to Frax ETH is what if we actually back our ETH stablecoin partly with other LSDs, partly with Reeth, partly with maybe Lido, Steve, and Stader Labs as LSD, while the entry queue is extremely long, right? And so that's a very interesting thing because we wouldn't miss out on providing yield for Frax ETH users. However, we would be able to use other LSDs in the meantime. So we're exploring very novel, interesting ways in which to bring more like capital efficiency and also not to have to wait many weeks in the entry queue, basically not doing anything. I think a lot of people will come up with technologies in that space, like for example, ways in which you can actually put the LSD to work while there's a lot of pending validators. We're designing a lot of stuff in that area, but it's still really early days. So pretty cool to see what everyone's building.
Yep. I think that there was a question that popped up from the audience, and one of the things that they talk about was ETFs, right? So there are sort of ETFs or basket stake ETH baskets, right? So people that combine a few different stake ETHs together to form a product. I was wondering, I think Darren and Sam, you guys have yours in some of these baskets. What do you guys think of those? And maybe Darren can answer.
Yeah.
So go Sam. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think the baskets are very interesting. I think there's one, Index Scoop has one, there's a few others. One of the good things, as I was just saying, is the more LSD protocols integrate each other, the more efficient it actually gets, so that if there's times of long entry queues, you can actually sidestep those by being partially backed, like I was just saying. But go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, I think it's good for kind of a user experience thing. Usually, baskets or indexes are used to buy whole swathes of the market and not have to think about it too much. I think people should think about the underlying staking protocols at least a little bit, particularly as with an index, you're kind of tying yourself to all of them at the same time. But I do think they're good for simplifying. And as Sam said, as more of the protocols get this Lindy effect, as more of them mature and get fully established, that's going to be a lot easier. You can just do that. So yeah, I think they're definitely good for simplifying the kind of the productization of staking. But yeah, you just have to kind of think about the underlying sometimes.
Yep. Okay. I guess with all these LSDs coming to the market, and everyone's design is sort of different. There's a push for diversification, right? Obviously, and users may want to hold multiple different ones to sort of diversify some of the smart contract risks. I'm just wondering, like, but ultimately, I think from convenience sake, eventually everyone wants to sort of treat stake ETH the same, I think. And interoperability is a big thing for DeFi, and it having many different LSDs that don't follow the same standard makes it hard to sort of integrate into existing protocols. So I'm just wondering, is this sort of a challenge? Do you all think that eventually there will be a standardized sort of ERC standard, I guess, for LSDs, just like we have ERC 4626. Yeah. Maybe start with Sam, yeah, because your design is I guess the most different.
Yeah, so like I said, we just think of everything as stable coins, and so just the same way that there's dollar pegged stable coins, and everyone uses USDT, USDC, DAI, Frax, and these kinds of things. I think there will be a top class of basically blue chip LSDs, and those will if you think of the stable coins as like the dollar peg stable coins as bank deposits, right? You have these large US banks, right? You have JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and these your bank deposits there are essentially interchangeable, right? And the top stable coins are mostly interchangeable on DeFi. And I think the top LSDs, it's still way too early. As Darren says, you do want to look at the underlying protocols and things like that. But like, for example, Lido has never had a critical security incident where there's been wide scale ETH loss. Frax Ether has never had a critical security incident. I'm not aware of Rocket Pool having one either. And so these are basically impeccable security records, right? And so I think over time, the Lindy effect of these things will make them just de facto like bank deposits that are interchangeable. They just happen to be denominated in ETH. And that's the kind of way that I think about these things, is in terms of stable coins, in terms of bank deposits that yield some kind of interest rate. And so eventually they'll just converge on everyone thinking about them like that. But there's obviously different token designs like rebasing, which we don't do. There's two token designs, which we do. And the way that we have our interest-bearing asset stake Frax ETH is just the virtual price goes up. So it's ERC 4626 Volt-based token, and it's very easy to integrate in DeFi. It has a lot of gas optimizations, permits, and these kinds of things. And I think that's more and more LSDs will probably end up designing their tokens.
Yep. Anoothi, what do you think about interoperability, I guess, in this sense, like being interchangeable with each other?
Yeah, I think Sam and Darren covered it. I mean, Sam definitely talked about it in detail, but I feel like currently I do not see it as a very big challenge as long as all the leading protocols who support LSD can support DeFi. Because as the LSD landscape is growing, a standardization can definitely help in scalability and a more seamless user experience. But as long as the protocols are supporting DeFi integration, I think that's level one. And then this does not mean that all LSD tokens need to be alike. However, it will definitely be helpful if they are compatible with, say, a very same or a very similar token standard, such as ERC20. And that definitely means that the tokens do not need to hold the same value or the same construct. It's basically largely the design and the token standard which makes you compatible with DeFi opportunities. In an end state, where all of these are interchangeable, that would definitely give a lot of power to the user. But I think it's more of a journey, and I firmly believe what Darren was talking about in terms of understanding the nuances of every protocol. because you have seen it on other POS blockchains such as BNB, where on the surface for a new user it might seem that all of them are very similar, but the risks and the design nuances are very different. And so I feel it has to be more of a journey rather than implementing immediate interoperability. And we also need to educate the users simultaneously in terms of what they're entering into. However, I do believe level one is to just make sure we are compatible with DeFi to at least unlock that utility for the users.
Yeah, Darren, do you have anything to add to that? I think you talked about having to pay attention to the underlying, right?
No, that's really great. As Anoothi said, ERC20 gets us quite far. It has gotten us quite far up until this point. There are the tokens everywhere. So as you guys know, so ERC20 gets us quite far. I think we are in an innovative space. It will calm down. We're kind of in a boiling, bubbling volcano at the moment. At some point, things will start to crystallize, and those standards will emerge. There's also kind of an opportunity. Everything's quite fluid. Standards to go over the top of the different standards. Different categories of liquid staking token will come out and be applicable for different people. So yeah, it's really anyone's guess, but things do tend to standardize over time. So it's going to be quite good. I think the standardization that we've got at the moment is quite good, but yeah, over time it will get better and better.
Yeah, I think even 4626 took a while after all the lending protocols have sort of come to market before the community sort of rallied around a single standard. I think second last question before we wrap up. I think Anoothi mentioned eigenlayer and one of the more hyped things that people are starting to talk about, even though we don't really have the product yet. And interestingly, Vitalik also started talking about some of this, so like asking people not to overload the Ethereum consensus, right? Don't get too crazy with like staking on top, like restaking on top of staking and things like that. So I'm curious, what do you guys think about this? Are you guys worried, concerned? Are you guys excited? What what people sort of use your primitives for? Yeah, maybe I start with Anoothi, since you started with eigenlayer.
Yeah, so Zhong, what I would like to say is that it definitely unlocks an interesting possibility. However, we have to be cognizant of the demands it will put on the chain and what the risks could be. So, as we are looking at it, I feel that it definitely is a very interesting solution, because it will enable actually a better rate of innovation, because of leveraging the same set of validators and then deploying them for additional services with their existing staked ETH. And I think this is in spirit of the capital efficiency that we often talk about. However, it's a relatively new tech, and we all need to see it on the mainnet and see it getting executed to know what will actually pan out. And while I do see like certain applications having major benefits like EigenDA, I feel is at least promising to show something really powerful in terms of the entire hyper scalability of data services, etc. But I do feel like we have to be a little more cognizant of the risks in terms of what could be the potential attack vectors, and what are the slashing vulnerabilities involved in this entire mechanism. So not enough information, but I'm always excited about innovation. Innovation definitely comes with a pinch of salt in terms of how should it scale, and then what is the right way to scale. Maybe what's looking in theory might not be possible, but I hope that in terms of capital efficiency, we are able to use this entire Ethereum infrastructure to actually scale up more services and reward these validators with a lot more opportunities if they're willing to commit to certain responsibilities.
Yeah, Darren, I mean, EigenLayer has been testing on testnet with part of it Rocket Pool ETH. So was wondering, do you have more information for us? How's it going? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so we're I mean we're in contact with Eigenlayer, and we've kind of had quite a few chats about where they're going. We haven't kind of like formally done an integration or anything. It's still very very early days. I think we're cautiously optimistic, as Anoothi said. It's good for node operators, and our community are a lot of them are node operators. It's good for node operators, but at the same time, it could open up a whole can of worms, a Pandora's box. And so it's not necessarily being scared of that. It's just again managing the risk. Ethereum is an economic system and there are multiple parties and lots of incentives. So we have to just be careful how we kind of roll that out. And Eigenlayer are definitely thinking kind of about that as well. But things like guardrails and that sort of thing around the collateral is very very important. So yeah, at the moment we're kind of cautiously optimistic, and we're going to see how things kind of play out and kind of integrate as we go, where it makes sense. And probably listen to Vitalik and because he does tends to speak a lot of sense sometimes. But yeah, so we'll kind of see how that plays out and take it kind of one step at a time.
Yeah, and Sam, anything to add to that?
Yeah, so Frax ETH will have a V2 update that allows anyone to run their own validator, kind of similar to Rocket Pools. It's a little bit different in terms of it's designed as a large lending pool where you can actually borrow the right to be a validator, but it's the same thing. And so because it's fully decentralized in that way, it basically supports Eigenlayer, because if you're a staker, you can opt into certain Eigenlayer restaking initiatives. So Frax ETH V2 will likely have full support for Eigenlayer, given that there's basically it's just a permissionless pool for validators, anyone to come and be a validator. And so it'll be interesting to see how many of them you decide to restake. But I just thought the Vitalik's warning, so to speak, was pretty interesting, because he usually stays out of opinionated things in terms of Ethereum development. So except for this, he had a pretty clear, concrete warning of don't do this or do that. This is high risk and that's low risk. So I think this won't be the last time he'll say certain things in this area. So I'm watching it very closely. And the fact that he has a pretty strong opinion, like Darren says, I think we should all listen, right? It is Vitalik.
Yeah, and I think we all pay attention every time he posts a blog post or he starts talking. I think we're near the end of the session, and this is sort of where we're about to wrap it up. I think just wanted to turn it over to you guys, to our speakers. Any sort of last words before we close out. Maybe start with Darren.
I think kind of echo everyone's sentiment over the last kind of hour or so, and that is that staking is taking off post Shapella. You're going to see LSDs everywhere going forward. Staking is definitely hit on the map. And I totally agree with everyone else in terms of, overall in the long term, we need to have kind of this kind of equal distribution of stake across multiple providers, because that's how we get a really great decentralization and long-term health of Ethereum and the sustainability of Ethereum, which we're all kind of building protocols and businesses on. So that's quite important. But the future is looking very, very good. The Ethereum roadmap has got some interesting stuff for decentralized protocols as well. So so things are definitely looking up for the staking industry.
Yeah, and Anoothi.
Yeah. So I would just second what Darren said. I think that this is probably one of the most exciting times to be building an LSD protocol on Ethereum. I think the momentum is really strong. The users are getting familiar with this and getting mature, and so I believe that. Literally, the sky's the limit for us, especially on Ethereum, and we all have to grow in this together and make sure that LSDs in general become, a more preferred way of investing. This passive income opportunity gets unlocked for more and more users, and we also try to bring together, an investment class or an asset class which is more secure and trusted. So the onus is on all of us to build that trust with the users. And I also believe that LSDs are going to be an extremely significant tool in terms of propelling DeFi forward and actually being that bridge between, the traditional financial system and then what we envision as DeFi, because they are the ones that will actually propel the utility of the token and encourage DeFi participation. And I feel I'm extremely thrilled about the opportunity in front of us. And like I already said, I believe that this is just the tip of the iceberg. And who knows, 1 year later we'll be sitting together and reflecting on all the amazing things that we were able to tap into and grow in amazing ways. So I'm super thrilled and very excited to be building on ETH.
Yeah, and last but not least, Sam.
Yeah. So as we've said, we're trying to build something that is as positive sum as possible. So if you're listening to this, if you're a builder, if no matter what you're building, whether it's like a lending protocol, AMM, DeFi primitive, like carving up yield, or even a perspective on LSD, we'd love to talk to you, talk about ways in which you can integrate Frax ETH and we can integrate and work with your protocol. We're on Telegram, Twitter. It's super, super easy. And to get in touch with me or even the Frax community overall. We just want to actually help everyone build and create an ecosystem where everyone is working to create more value. And so if that's you, if you're listening, and if there's a really interesting project that you're working on, we'd love to talk to you about it. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks everyone. Thanks Darren, thanks Anoothi, thanks Sam for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And I'm quite sure we all learned a lot from this session on LSDs. And like Anoothi said, maybe when we sit down again a year from now, we're gonna have a lot more interesting things. I'm quite sure we'll have a lot more interesting things to talk about in this space. So thank you again, all three of you, for joining us. Thank you to our audience for joining us. If you've stayed to the end, we have a special promo code for you to use in the CoinGecko store. If you go to our store and key in the code CoinGecko5, you'll get a $5 discount of anything on the store itself. So thank you so much. This is all the time that we have today. This is our 24th virtual meetup. And take care, everyone, and we'll see you again next month for our 25th meetup. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Thanks for being a wonderful host, Zhong. And thanks, the panel. Amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.